Hello.
Hi, how are you, Lois?
Good.
Good.
Excellent. It's great to see your voice. Guess what I just got?
Oh, yay!
It's crazy when the author, her shipment got delayed or lost or, stuck at the airport. Something fun. Why not?
It's life,
It
right?
is life. That's what we got to figure out how to win at it, right?
That's right.
Awesome.
Yay! Well, I'm
So,
so excited to read your book. I can't wait.
thank you. I can't either, no.
Right? Here it is.
It's here.
Yay! Well, thanks for agreeing to do an interview with me about it. I just love talking with you. I always love talking with you, and I love that I've been sharing about you with my followers for since I've been having this platform, and I can't wait to be able to extend some of your nuggets of wisdom to my friends and family.
Exactly. Because, come on. What you do, think about what it does for the gut.
I know,
Which
right?
is your cranial nerves.
Absolutely.
And you get
And
the top
I really
part
want to
going.
talk about that.
Yeah, you get the top part going, the inside going, and then the outside changes. People don't get that the outside changes last, do they?
Right. That all these things are going on inside. And that's one of the probably huge just bits of wisdom that you've provided me that have helped me through not just my own healing, but also with my kids and working with other people, that the changes that the body decides to make aren't necessarily in line with my priorities, that the body might have different priorities, and that we can't just chase symptoms,
right? Because
the symptoms are a result of other things. And what I love about you, Lois, is you tend to go to square one, and the results are like, for me in my personal life, beyond even what I was looking to fix, like things that I didn't even think were fixable, things I just thought were life for me. And that just what we tend to accept as, well, this is my life, that my life is a struggle because of this. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, which is amazing.
Right. And you don't know what you can have until you get a taste of it and experience it.
Right.
It is experiential.
Right, for sure. And so if I can share a little bit about how I met you and what you did with me, and then we're going to dive into the book, that'd be great.
Excellent.
So I met Lois in 2013. Oh, no, 2014. So 9 years ago. I was at basically rock bottom in my health journey. I'd had gut health issues that turned into hormone issues that had all kinds of symptoms that I didn't even know were connected to each other at the time. But I had been to countless doctors. All of them shrugged their shoulders at me or tried to throw antidepressants or anti-anxiety medicines, like, well, it just must be this. And I knew that wasn't it. Like, yes, I'm sad, but that's because I'm throwing up after every meal. Wouldn't you be sad too? I even said that to a doctor. I'm like, well, wouldn't you be sad if you were throwing up? If you were throwing up after every meal? And I was trying to be healthy. I was eliminating all the foods that I was supposed to be eliminating. And I'd gotten down to like 5 things I could eat. And I had lost my cycle. I had done just so many. It was just this snowball of deterioration in a 25-year-old body. And I'd even been told by one doctor that, well, this is just part of getting older, which is just crazy to me. I was 22 when a doctor told me that, which is insane. But anyway, so I went to see Dr. Lois Laynee, because my husband told me, like, if anyone can fix you, it's this lady. And so I went and I was fortunate enough to spend a weekend with Lois. And we looked at structural first. She did a lot of, I'm sure, just analysis of me while I'm talking about all my problems and listing out all my problems. I got super emotional. And I remember at one point, and this was just the emotional part, that I had drawn out on my body all the injuries, all the things. My body was a mess. And I said, why won't God just heal me? I'm waiting for God to heal me, or I'm praying for God to heal me. And Lois looked at me and she said, why don't you pray for someone to help you so that you can then help other people? And to me, that was kind of a light bulb moment that just a shift in my mentality that helped me not just through my healing, but then what I'm doing now. And I remember calling Lois when I started my business, Brewing Broth, and helping people with my Instagram account, helping people walk through their health journey. I called her and I said, Aunt Lois, I'm doing it. I'm doing what you helped me, and now I'm helping others and paying it forward, and I'm just so thankful. But anyway, back to that initial meeting, Lois asked, why is your tongue sticking out in this MRI? It was an MRI or CAT scan, I can't remember. She took an image of my face, and I said, well, I know that I'm tongue tied, and that doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's, well, let's look at that. And so a big part of my journey was addressing not just the tongue, but what I didn't know at the time was the cranial nerve connections that went along with the tongue tie, and a host of other connections that are above my pay grade. Where my body started connecting, and within 3 weeks of doing just the breathing exercises that Lois taught me after meeting with her, after the initial work that we did, and then I was diligent in doing the exercises. After 3 weeks, I realized that what I called this ticker tape in my mind had gone away. And Lois said, well, that's your anxiety, dear. Bye-bye. And just all that, I didn't even realize that was anxiety. And it's like, I can just relax now. And that was the first thing that I noticed. It wasn't what I went to you for, but that was the first thing that my body took care of. And I started being able to regulate my body temperature. I started to be able to think more clearly. I started to be able to digest my food. I started to be able to not throw up after every meal, and a host of other things that through working through the work that you taught me, I went through healing, and not just healing, but there was an all of a sudden time where I realized I have more energy than I've ever had in my entire life. That I went from not just like, well, I'm not throwing up every day. Great. My stomach's not hurting every day. Great. I got my period back. Great. All these things that we would call, that I went, symptoms, to thriving in a way that I didn't think was possible for me. And that is what I wanted to share through my little platform, that this is possible. And that's what I love about your work, is that you give so much hope through what you do, that it's not just that we get so fixated on our symptoms, and we go to specific doctors for these symptoms, and the health paradigm tends to separate all these symptoms and have a different doctor for each one. And I think that that's kind of where I want to start with, is that our current health paradigm tends to separate symptoms and have a pill for each thing. Where I think your approach is much deeper, and yet it kind of takes care of the external. I can't remember the word that you just used earlier, but what is it about the cranial nerves and the airway? And even in my case, like you said it in vernacular that I could understand, my tongue tie and midline dysfunction. But these, how does this set your body in motion to heal from, I would call, the periphery of symptom XYZ?
QR, XYZ.
all of it, the gamut.
And they're all, because they're all in the alphabet and they're all together, and yeah. Well, cranial nerves are the foundation. So just imagine if your brain can't identify oxygen. That's a cranial nerve function. It's in your nose, it's in your mouth, it's in the back of your tongue. They're everywhere. Now, if they don't work, you're under neurological distress. So just imagine distress. We've all had personal distress, you know, and you almost sit there and go, oh goodness, we don't want one more thing to happen because we're already stressed out. But with every breath, if your body and brain is stressed out, everything could go haywire. So your hormones could go haywire. My muscles could atrophy. But we could have the same cranial nerve dysfunction. Do you see? But our bodies are going to respond differently to that neurological inability. For everything automatic should be automatic. Right. So digestion should be automatic. Now, in your situation, when we talked about midline, if the midline doesn't work, and what that means is just anything on the midline, if my right nerve is here and my left nerve is here, for my midline to work, which your airway is a really important part of your midline, you have to not only have it here, but it's got to integrate. So that's what's important, to have those nerves integrate so that you can grow. They continually need to integrate to grow. So if you have something restricting it, what it means is the communication of those cranial nerves from the right to the left and the left to the right, that part can't fully connect. So your body has to compensate. So we're going to make just a guess, okay? So you could have thrown up because the cranial nerve could not talk from the right side to the left side. And if you think of what is function going down, what is reverse function is coming up. So dysfunction could be the incomplete of going down, but the reverse function is coming up. So that's the big, I mean, it's a huge deal to have reverse function. You know, it's like if you went to smile, but you frowned, that's reverse function. You know, gagging can be reverse function. You know, your things aren't supposed to work certain ways. Okay. Right. So when the electricity gets reconnected, as you said, you experience ease. Okay. So when all the platforms, it's just like our computers, you know, who wants to work? Like imagine this right now, trying to accomplish something on AOL dial-up. Okay. It's the wrong platform. We understand platforms, but it's the neurological network that's a platform. So cranial nerves, if they're incomplete, my platform is AOL dial-up. And then you could have had in your situation anatomy affected it, but it also cranial nerve dysfunction. So you can have a tongue tie and have zero cranial nerve dysfunction. See, it's not one causes the other. You know, I can have blue eyes and a tongue tie. I could have brown eyes and a tongue tie. I mean, you know, people look for groupings, but that's what we can see. I believe in neurological testing because electricity to an area creates natural function.
So you're saying not necessarily there's not necessarily a correlation between structure and cranial nerve development, where we can't just be like, oh, because a lot of places are like, oh, you're tongue tied, it's an MTHFR dysregulation or SNP or whatever. And
right. And you can have it. There can be, you can be together and you cannot. See, that's a biochemical. One isn't. Do you see? So all of neurophysiology has to be assessed independently for you, for your roadmap. And that's the thing nowadays. Everybody jumps on one bandwagon. They do one thing. Well, it may or may not work. And that's why people get exhausted. And that's why I wrote my book, so that you can just look at a big platform and say, have I really covered the bases? And of course, there's more. This is just a concept to look at. Do we want to have a baseline? Because I love to be a detective and go down over the ways, because I can check 6 things. They're fine. So I don't need to check 100 more. But if every one of those first 6 things are off, I may have 100 things to check. So people are like, well, you know, you're going to do this. And every person, the same assessment is going to give us a different roadmap.
Right. Because you're basically testing the foundation of the house, whereas most of us are looking at painting the walls different, you know, and
Exactly.
you're painting walls
Right.
if the foundation's crumbling.
Right. I look at it this way. You go to the doctor and you go, I broke my toe in the middle of the night. Okay, well, what caused that? Okay, so if you're a good investigator, you're going, well, did you turn on the light? Nope, I have no electricity in my house. So the electricity created the environment that they broke their toe. Maybe they do have electricity and they have a cerebellum problem. They lost their balance. Do you see? So there's a lot of different reasons why something can happen.
Yes, yeah, and I know that one of the things that I noticed at the very one of the things that you helped me through was a tongue tie release. I get a lot of questions about that based on my field because that was a pivotal point in my healing journey. We did a lot of work before and after the release, and I tell a lot of people that most people need a lot of cranial work, a lot of myofascial work, a lot of exercises, especially when you're an adult, because we've got a lot of muscle compensation to work through. One of the things that I noticed, and this was phenomenal, that for years, because of the field that I was in, I'd had numerous doctors, physical therapists, everyone trying to fix my scapula, my scapulae, my shoulder blades. For people who don't know, my shoulder blades were winged out like a chicken. And I'd been kinesiotaped, I'd been stemmed, they'd done all the voodoo on me, right? Nothing could get it. And I was, after my tongue tie revision, and we were doing breathing exercises, we were doing lots of therapy with Lois. I was with her. I was going for a walk, and all of a sudden, my shoulder blades just went, and my diaphragm went, and it just dropped into place. And one of the things that I really want to talk to you on is that I mean, I was 28 at the time, I think 27, 28. You would think it'd be a little too late to have such an extreme structural change in my body, right? But can you elaborate on how the electricity and connections can make, and just from stimulation or whatever, because I've also had a lot of help from you with my kids where we're just doing stimulation on their mouth, up their nose, to turn on that electricity. And I know a lot of my followers kind of want to know, is it too late for me? You know, I'm 50, I'm even 60. Is it too late for me to heal, in a sense? And so could you talk a little bit about that electricity from the cranial nerves and stimulation and how things turn on? Because you'll say it way better than me.
Oh, no. Great. Well, first of all, my oldest patient, I believe, was 92. And she was complaining of incontinence, and she got continence back after 3 days.
Wow.
Now, you know, and again, I worked on cranial nerves, and the cranial nerves gave her the energy and connected to all the regions. So again, you basically have brownouts in your body, if you can think of that, but you don't know it's a brownout. And so when the cranial nerve function, that's the power for the whole grid. All right. Now, in your situation, it was a little different with your scapula, because what the muscles and the nerves have to all fire. When they fire, you have equal tone. So that if a muscle returns to equal tone, the bone will follow the direction of the equal tone of the groups. Okay, so if one nerve, just like if all the nerves in your body innervate muscles, right? So they all have to have equal tone, and you have to have enough of it. So if you have a 4-inch muscle, you need to have enough electricity for 4 inches. And what a lot of people have is electricity for 2 inches. Okay. So you can, just like you said, you can have all these muscle therapies, you can do all these other things, but you don't have enough electricity for that muscle to fully function from a physical size. Okay, and that's how it does. Now you have to turn it on. You have to take care of the cranial nerve that goes through the cerebellum, that goes up to the parietal lobes and everywhere else. You know, everything going up has to work, and the brain has to process in sequence, and then everything down has to work. It has to be in the right way, because your diaphragm, of course, with it being across your midline, talking about midlines again, you have to have enough innervation for that muscle in the synchronicity of sequence, and the sequence is the sequence of development. So when it has enough voltage, when it has the right balance of electricity, when it's fully integrated and innovated, nature takes over. And there's always a sound.
Yeah, the comes with it.
It does.
So
and I'm
saying
be quiet.
Or that the time could be different for every person, for
100%.
all to develop. And how does somebody work on or turn on or increase that, as you call it, electricity from their cranial nerves?
Well, we started with, in my book, I gave 5 exercises in the back.
Awesome.
And those are very specific, very easy exercises that you can do. When a person starts, normally they complain, and half the time people say one thing: I think they're stupid, which means my brain can't do it. My brain can't do it. We're going to call it an A. You know, oh, they're too easy. Oh, really?
Yeah, because you can't.
Right. And the brainstem knows it, and the brainstem doesn't want to fail. So the brainstem is going to avoid. So people like, the hardest thing moms and parents have is when a child can't do something, the child will avoid it. And then the parent says he doesn't like it.
Right.
It's like, no.
If
The brain likes to breathe. The brain doesn't like to change.
Yes. And I remember when you first taught me exercises, like my right hand couldn't find my left knee. And you stood there isn't it? You're a D1 athlete and your right hand can't find your left knee.
Do you think that would have affected your golf game when you first started?
A little bit. And that's something that I've noticed about even with my children, that they're so coordinated in some ways, and yet other, in different. And for me, like obviously my eye-hand coordination, I was a college golfer. Like I had pretty good coordination, muscle control, but at the same time, there are certain parts where my brain must have been like, oh shoot, I don't know where I am in space.
Well,
which would be
required a lot of your energy. So think about this.
Yes.
You're there, you have a scholarship, you have something to prove, you have a contract. So your will override and just drain your battery down. And then you'll become a crappy sleeper and you won't recover. And what happens? You end with an injury. So
many
my heart goes out because we don't want your heart and soul activity to be ended early due to an injury because we haven't fully recovered.
Right. Or just to become a draining, awful experience because it's just too much. It just being all of it, where it was too much energy that I didn't have. And so it just became like too hard. Because I wasn't able to do it all and was afraid of failing, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating how the once you get all the things in line, that the body wants to heal itself.
Exactly.
And wants to thrive.
And it knows how to. You have to get
Yeah.
Nature knows how to do it. All we have to do is get it the electricity, get it the connection, get it turned on, and let it take over.
Yeah. And so let's say I want everyone to buy your book. They do these exercises. About how much time a day would they take?
It all depends if they're willing to go slow until their nervous system clicks.
Mm.
Okay. And then what happens, what I tell everybody is print it out and read it.
Mm.
Because what happens is people glance and then they try to do it. They can't figure it out. They're frustrated and they want something quick.
Mm.
So, if you're an audio person, just go to a quiet room. People, hey, go to the library, go sit in your car somewhere. Most people can't carve out 10 minutes to learn something new.
To focus on it.
Yes, and not have the interruptions. Because again, sound and sight, cranial nerves.
Mm-hmm.
When I have it, that's why it's easy to coach somebody because they can close their eyes and we can work with it to get it on. But when you're working with yourself, you have to read, pause, do, read, pause, do, And most of the time, people, if they have colder hands, they also have lack of blood flow in their brain.
That was me. Like I went numb at 70 degrees. Like, and that was me. And that was one of the first things I noticed too, was that, I don't have Raynaud's syndrome anymore.
And that's the thing. So when I have people close their nose, people do this. They don't even know where their nose is on their face. That's how much the cranial nerve to the parietal lobes, to the sensory cortex, all those parts aren't even complete. They're not accurate. Now, the impact of that is now my face may not grow accurately because it's not mapped in my brain accurately. You see, all those parts have to work. So when I take a thumb and close off a nose, you just take your fingerprint, gently touch your nose. And so people go like this, and it's like, no, this. So again, their brain can't look, see, touch, feel, recheck to ensure they're correct. All those are the neural pathways we're working because this is similar neural pathways to breathe. Yeah. The neural pathways to sleep. Yeah. And again, the two most essential things we have to do to live our lives and recover from our day.
Absolutely. Can you talk for a brief moment on the importance of breathing, nasal breathing, even in sleep and digestion, just wellness, probably?
Well, the key with nasal breathing is, I could talk for days, so it's really hard for me to limit it. However, the bottom line is we're stimulating the cranial nerves and they're opening the nose in proper sequence. So there's a rhythmical dimension, and that same rhythm of opening the nasal pathways is a rhythmical dimension for sleep. It's the same rhythmical dimension for peristalsis. So peristalsis begins with smell, then it produces saliva. In saliva are all these wonderful enzymes, okay? But what does that require if my smell and my saliva are part of digestion? I need to smell food for 20 minutes. Oh my goodness, that's old-fashioned cooking. Okay, there's lots of studies out there to show, why can you eat and digest a home-cooked meal better? You've smelt it for 20 minutes or longer, so that's why when you go into a shop, you smell your broth for 20 minutes or so. You're going to have all sorts of different biochemistry in your body and neurological signals that are preparing you to digest. Well, all those signals are necessary for sleep because all those signals create the organization of your airway, which provide the same thing for breathing, digestion, sleep. They have to have the same nerves that have to be organized.
I like that word organized. I think that's a good visual, that we have electricity and that needs to be organized and really living more of a natural life, like cooking your food or being able to smell your food. And I like to say, even if say you're out and you have to have fast food or whatever, just smelling it and saying thanks for it, pausing, that helps get those digestive enzymes going. I see that somebody asked a question, would you suggest mouth tape for mouth breathers during sleep?
Well, the first thing I would do is turn on cranial nerves first, because no matter what kind of intervention we may do, that's not going to solve the problem.
Okay. Open your mouth for a reason, right?
Well, there's just incomplete function, because if I accomplish it at night, it doesn't mean I've accomplished it during the day. So I'm into, the foundation of function. So my whole world is, I'm not looking at dysfunction. I mean, we assess the abilities of function. Okay. Because just like you were talking, turning on the natural abilities resolves so many other things, because we're just turning on nature. We're turning on function. So there's all these strategies for dysfunction. I work on the strategies for function. So it's a little different focus. And that's where I start first.
Yeah, and I like that, because most doctors you go to, even the more naturally minded ones, they want to get you out of pain. For example, they have all these therapies for the pain, or
but they don't know why the pain's there.
Right. And of course we need to try to put out the fire before we figure out why it started too, like especially for, say, athletes or people who have this pain and need to carry their kids around, or whatever. But yeah, that your approach is more for fixing that foundation, which is so important, because the body's it's gonna compensate. And I remember that's one of the things that I learned from the very beginning. My first time with you, you said that every time I swallowed, I was clenching my toes, and that my brain from day one out of the womb was trying to eat, is that, oh shoot, this tongue ain't working, figure something else out, and went all the way to my toes. And you said, and then you try to go run miles on those toes. No wonder you have plantar fasciitis all the time. You are overworking those feet with every swallow. And I feel like that's a good metaphor for most of us, right, for our life. Like we are running on fumes, trying to accomplish all these great, wonderful things without first addressing how can I give my body the support and fuel it needs so that I can do it without dying, right? without being in pain all the time, or without, having all these symptoms. Because I remember after we fixed my stuff, like I was able to run half marathons, etc., without injury at all. And which I just think is just a testament and to the metaphor that was, that if you get everything working and balanced and organized, the body wants to be pain-free, and it will, and it'll have the fuel, and you can work with it and be more in tune with it when you're starting from square one, which is what you're doing.
Exactly. And you wouldn't get there for yourself without your broth.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know that in your book you talk about nutrition as well, that they all go together. That this is not, well, you do this one thing and to heck with food, you can eat whatever you want. It's like, no, this is all about fueling your body well and at the foundation, and the food is a support of that, and the exercises are how to get everything the square one. And so I think it's beautiful because it all works together, and all the keys that for me, like it's like I had this lock, and it's like tink 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 tink, and then finally the last spot in the lock hit, and boom, that's when my aha moment happened, and that's when I had more energy than I knew what to do with, and started this Instagram account and stuff. Started brewing broth, and so that's what I love about your work, and love seeing these interviews that you're doing. I think this is so much fun because most of us that have met and worked with you didn't just then go back and live a sedentary, hole in the wall life. We all want to go share. you know, we want to go teach. And I taught your breathing exercises for a while, and still will whenever my kids get in school and stuff. But I talk about it all the time on here, because when you have, like, this isn't shared enough. And I think that this is a side of health that isn't talked about enough. And that's why I think your book is going to be a game changer, because this is, I like to call it, it's a niche, but it is the universal niche.
It is.
Which I know kind of a joke.
You wouldn't be alive without your brain stem.
Right?
Your brain is not your brain. It's very different. And if the cranial nerves can't reach your brain, and if your cranial nerves can't feel air, then it doesn't know how to coordinate your lungs.
For sure. And I like that it just doesn't know how. And you talked yesterday where you're talking about stimulation, and it's like the nerves will find each other through stimulation. Like the brain stem and the nerves and the synapses in those nerves, they're looking for each other. And we tend to, and I've seen this especially when working with my children and with myself, that we are often in what I call ruts of our behavior, where then to get out of that rut into a new, healthy, organized line might take a lot of work. It's kind of like building a new habit. But so much for me, especially when working with children, I tend to get really just frustrated because things don't happen like that.
Right.
And that it's so encouraging to hear that, you know, like that they're finding each other. You just got to keep going, keep doing the exercises, keep diligent with it. You don't even know what you may be fixing underneath the surface.
Right.
Because we tend to be looking for one thing, which for kids is usually some kind of behavioral, or even maybe a skin, or, you know, like a talking or something. I see someone asked about, is there a correlation with autism and speech delay with cranial nerve dysfunction? And I'll let you talk about that if you have time. Sorry, I know that I'm probably going over. But we're usually looking for this symptom to be fixed.
Right.
Fix my kid. You know, not out of a nefarious thing, but like, I want my kid to be happy and healthy and have an awesome life. And so I want this thing to be gone, right? But doing the support can help in more ways than just that one symptom that we're looking at.
Right. Again, all the labels that have been labeled, okay, is not what I dance with. Because every human being has cranial nerve functions that must function for their quality of life. So their quality of life is a reflection of the quality of electrical firing of their cranial nerves. Okay, you cannot have a problem and it doesn't include a cranial nerve at the base. So again, you know, if the tree doesn't have water, you're not going to get leaves. So if somebody could be busy trimming off the dead leaves, it's not going to change what's going to happen down the road. Do you know what I mean? So when you come back, we have to, again, rebuild all these areas. Okay. One area, just because I have enough oxygen, I still have to have a nerve fiber that regulates temperature. Okay. So again, if we don't have enough body temperature, we don't get natural function. We're not get hormones without natural temperature. We're not going to get blood flow. So you could have enough oxygen, but the blood isn't flowing enough. Do you see? So the quality of the blood is fine, but we don't have enough temperature to deliver it to the end part. So the end user isn't getting it. It's just like water. If there's not enough water, the end of the field doesn't get watered. And
it could look differently for each person.
It is. And they look differently a person. That's why I laugh when everybody wants to talk about research or this or that. I'm like, well, what was their cranial nerve assessment first? What was their starting oxygen level? What was their starting CO2 level? What was their heart rate variability level? What was their temperature? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, temperature all over their body temperature.
Right. Basal temperature. Yeah.
And if we don't know that, we don't know what we're measuring. And if I'm waiting for you to tell me that you have a problem, you don't know what we could have done when you just needed to do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when I grew up, we had a yearly exam. And they always checked cranial nerves at your yearly exam.
How about that?
Because strong airway produces a strong child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So would you say that some of the exercises in your book, are they child friendly? Can parents do them with their kids?
Some yes, some no.
Okay.
It's not about the kids, because guess who needs cranial nerve strength first?
Mama.
There's research out there. If we have mom, we have 50% less to work with the child.
That's amazing.
I know it. I know. And that's why it's like, moms, go sit in the car for 10 or 15 minutes and practice.
Uh-huh.
Because what happens is people don't realize how the face that they're making when they look. So whenever they come toward a kid, usually the moms, are focusing, looking, and the kid's like, oh. Right? And just I said, you have to be. You go wiggle, 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 and you go, thank you. The parents like, we don't want to do it. I'm like, then it's not going to work.
Right.
Yeah. So mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, whoever, do this yourself first. So your neurological system can be stable, so the child will sync up with your neurological stability.
100%. And I hear that all the time, that you need to be regulated so that they can come to you. That if the parent or caregiver is dysregulated, the kids have no chance.
Well, and here's the natural dimension of this. A mother or a parent has only one gear to go to when they see their child struggle. Mm-hmm. It's just nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? So every parent that has a struggling child, or any family member for that reason, you're going to have autonomic distress.
Mm-hmm.
You
for sure
are in distress. So these are things that you can do 10 times a day, 20 times a day, 2 times a day. It's 100% up to you, but the more you do it, your nervous system is going to get more organized and efficient. And this is the way I look at it. Would you like 100 miles to gallon with your car, or would you like 10 miles? Hey, cranial nerves will get you 100 miles to the gallon.
That's such a great way to put it. And I love that it really is, and it has been for me. Whenever I'm feeling like I need a little extra support today, I'll stop and do some of the exercises. I'll make sure that I'm doing the breathing exercises. And this is 9 years later, this is just for me. So I notice that I'm up to here. I need to lower this with, working on just moving these things on out, connecting. And it is amazing how just how great of a tool your exercises and your knowledge is to heal, but then also to thrive. Because I put it, that health is being adaptable, because it's not like you're never going to be sick again. It's not like you're going to have something fall and bump you on the head, or be in a car crash, or something awful happen to you. It's, can you give your body the support, whether that's through nutrition or through these exercises, through being able to deliver support so that your body can have the fuel to repair and heal and recover from it.
Right. And I think part of it is it's not a comfortable place for people to realize that they need to slow down.
Slow down? No.
and that's the part, is you have to love yourself. Okay. I'm important enough.
You need to start valuing, I like to call it that, just the biblical notion of rest, that rest is important, because I shy away from the whole self-love term, but the body needs rest to function. That is, rest is fuel.
Right. It's recovery.
Right.
Right. And when you have that, now you start every day with a full tank. Most, I would say the average person, no matter what your dimension is, the average person probably starts each day with a fuel tank that's 30% filled.
Oh, maybe that. Yeah, we wake up to an alarm and have to go. Like, there's nothing like starting a day in stress.
Right. And it can be different.
Exactly. And one of the other things that I loved that you taught me, because so much of what you taught me, just even in the first time that we met 9 years ago, I like to extend to other people, because this rocked my world. Because I came to you with digestive distress. I could eat like a handful of foods. I was in a season of my life where I was traveling a lot, and that travel was super stressful for me, because I'm like, I have to pack all my food. How would I even have kids with this? Like, if I can ever have kids, because I couldn't at that time, and because my hormones were following my digestion and going down a bad path. But and I'm like, how can I even do this? I can't live like this. And you said, yes, you can. Even, like, we're going to work on getting you better. But at the same time, if you get to pack up that kid and pack up that backpack of food, you're going to be fine. And that whole idea of the balance of the quest to heal myself, balanced with how can I adapt even now, was just so, I can't think of a word. It put me at peace, that I can have a full and happy life, even if I don't get what I want. And obviously I do want this, but can I be happy and healthy and learn how to manage even if I don't get that? And I think that was regulating to me too, that getting into that peace and rest and digest, that we're going to be okay. And that's something that I think was just such a fundamental mind shift for me, that I love teaching to people that I get the honor of working with, that balance is healing in and of itself. Just because I remember so much of the cranial nerve work is getting the body to be able to be self-regulate, be at peace. And I didn't even get to ask you about the vagus nerve, because I wanted to do that, because a lot of people ask about that. That's kind of one of the big, like, people talk about it a lot. But just for the regulation of the autonomic nervous system, but knowing that I'm okay. And in this moment, I feel safe, that even if this, or I remember something bad happening to me, or last time I was here, this happened, or I don't like this, in this, can I be safe? And that helps the brain so much.
It does. Well, when you say it out loud, it regulates cranial nerve number 8. And cranial nerve number 8 has these reflexes to all other cranial nerves. So the concept, but you have to talk a little bit slow, because the processor is delayed.
So can you give me an example of that?
So I'll use my book. Okay. So clearly I look a little different than my book, right? Whatever. So
you just woke up like this. Fine.
I love it, but just, there's me, and then there's the picture of me.
Instagram versus right?
What I would say is a little bit slower in this moment, and you pause, because your brain is running around with 100 moments. You get to say, I am, and then your brain goes, oh my goodness, she's talking about me. And 100% safe. And then, what in this moment are you safe with that you see? So I'm 100% safe seeing the picture of me. And then I have to pause. And I have to pause so that my brain can sync up, because I've activated all my cranial nerves. I've spoken, I've moved my lips, my tongue, my throat, my airway. When I pause, my brain will naturally breathe. So I'm teaching my brain the rhythm of breathing and talking. just that creates a parasympathetic rhythm. So think of me as your piano teacher teaching you a new song with your cranial nerves.
It's the song of life. The song of peace and digestion.
Exactly. So if, and a lot of people, when they actually say that, they will then discover what they're not safe with.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember, because I was a school teacher when I went to see you, and I realized that I didn't breathe while I was reading. And I was an English teacher. I read a lot. And so working through this while breathing, like, could make it where it was, and I loved it. It's not that I that I thought that it was unsafe, but my gosh, when I'm doing so much reading and I'm not breathing, like, it's pretty phenomenal.
right. And that's because in the way the neural pathways were developed, they weren't developed together. They're developed independent. I can read, I can breathe, but never I can read and breathe.
Right.
So I got a note that we got to wrap up.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So I am so thankful for your work, Lois. You changed my life. I would say you saved my life. You're the most instrumental physician that I worked with, and I'm so thankful and honored to get to extend your work to other people through the form of this book. And so I love it. And so thank you so much for talking with me. And I hope that everyone buys the book, because this is the foundation of health that we're talking about. And it's a foundation that isn't just a diet. It isn't just something to do, but it is something to help everything else work better, which is awesome. So thank you for all you do. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I know. How do we stop it, right? There we go.